The golden hues of the setting sun bathed the university campus in a warm glow, mirroring the radiance in Emily's heart as she walked hand in hand with Jake. Their laughter mingled with the distant chatter of students lounging on the green lawns, encapsulating the carefree spirit of college life. "Race you to the old oak tree." Jake's eyes sparkled with playful challenge as he squeezed Emily's hand before releasing it to sprint ahead. "You're on," Emily shouted, her voice laced with laughter. Her feet pounded the path, her long hair streaming behind her like a banner in the wind. She caught up with him under the sprawling branches of the ancient tree, both gasping for breath, their laughter echoing around them. "Always so competitive," Emily teased, nudging Jake gently with her elbow. Jake wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "Only because it's the only way I can get you to run into my arms," he whispered, his lips brushing her forehead softly. The world seemed to stand still in that moment, with students milling around them, lost in their own worlds. Emily looked up into Jake's eyes, seeing the reflection of her own happiness mirrored back. Their conversation flowed effortlessly as they walked back, talking about everything from mundane class assignments to grand plans for the future. Emily's heart swelled with love and hope. She felt deeply connected to Jake, as if they were two halves of the same soul. As they reached her dorm, Jake held her a moment longer, his gaze deep and sincere. "Emily, you make everything brighter. I'm so lucky to have you," he murmured, his voice tinged with a warmth that made her heart flutter. Emily's eyes shone with unspoken emotions as she whispered back, "I feel the same, Jake. Every day with you is a dream." The night descended gently around them, but the light within them burned brighter, illuminating the path of their shared journey, blissfully unaware of the shadows that lay ahead. Autumn had draped the campus in a tapestry of red and gold, a stark contrast to the growing unease in Emily's heart. She sat at their favorite cafe, the one with the mismatched chairs and walls adorned with local art, waiting for Jake. Their weekly coffee date had become a cherished ritual, yet today it felt different. The bell above the door jingled, announcing Jake's arrival. His smile, once a beacon of warmth, now seemed a mere flicker of its former self. Emily's eyes searched his face, looking for the easygoing demeanor she knew so well, but found only a strained echo of it. "Hey, sorry I'm late," Jake muttered, his eyes briefly meeting hers before darting away. "It's okay," Emily replied, her voice soft, masking her concern. "Is everything all right? You seem different." Jake stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, avoiding her gaze. "Just the usual college stress, you know how it is," he said, offering a fleeting smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Emily wanted to believe him, to brush aside the nagging doubt that something more was amiss, but the intuitive connection they shared, once vibrant and attuned, now felt like a fading melody. Their conversation stumbled along, marked by awkward silences that loomed heavy between them. Emily laughed a little too loudly at Jake's half-hearted jokes, trying to reignite the spark that seemed to be dimming. As they walked back, the crisp autumn leaves crunched under their feet, a rhythmic reminder of the change in seasons. Emily glanced at Jake, his profile etched with lines of worry she hadn't noticed before. "Jake, if there's anything bothering you, you know you can tell me, right?" she asked, her voice laced with hope and uncertainty. He offered her a reassuring squeeze of her hand, but his response was a mere whisper carried away by the autumn breeze, leaving her heart fluttering with unspoken fears. The winter chill had settled over the campus, a stark contrast to the warmth of the yoga studio where Emily unwound each Thursday evening. As she moved through her poses, her mind was less on her alignment and more on the fragmented pieces of her relationship with Jake. In the corner of the room, Rachel, the yoga instructor, moved with a grace that commanded attention. Emily often admired Rachel's strength and poise, unaware of the hidden threads connecting them beyond this tranquil space. Meanwhile, Jake's presence in Emily's life grew increasingly sporadic. His texts were brief, his calls infrequent, and their time together felt strained, punctuated by his distracted glances at his phone and hasty excuses to leave. One evening, as Emily sat curled up with a book in her dorm, her phone buzzed with a message from Jake. "Can't make it tonight." Something came up. The words stung more than she expected. She typed a quick reply, her fingers heavy with disappointment. Later at the yoga studio, Emily lingered, watching Rachel tidy up the space. "You seem distant today. Everything okay?" Rachel asked, her voice tinged with genuine concern. Emily hesitated, then found herself spilling her worries about Jake. Rachel listened intently, her expression unreadable, a subtle hint of something more behind her eyes. As Emily walked back to her dorm under the starlit sky, she couldn't shake off the feeling that she was missing a crucial piece of a puzzle. Jake's once comforting image in her mind was now replaced by a mosaic of doubts and unanswered questions. That night, as she lay in bed, the shadows on her ceiling seemed to dance mockingly, mirroring the turmoil in her heart. The gap between her and Jake felt like a widening chasm, filled with unsaid words and unshared thoughts. The campus was alive with the hustle of mid-semester activities, but for Emily, the world seemed to move in slow motion. She sat on a bench outside the library, the winter sun casting long shadows on the ground, mirroring the darkening doubts in her mind. As Jake approached, his footsteps crunching on the gravel path, Emily's heart raced with a mix of anticipation and dread. She watched him, trying to decipher the stories hidden behind his forced smile. "Hey, Em," Jake greeted her, his voice lacking its usual warmth. "We need to talk, Jake," Emily said, her voice steady but her hands trembling slightly. "Something's changed. I can feel it. What's going on?" Jake hesitated, his eyes darting away before settling back on her. "It's just college stress, you know. Everything's fine," he replied, his words sounding rehearsed. Emily searched his face, looking for the sincerity that used to come so easily to him. "I know you, Jake. This isn't just stress. Are you seeing someone else?" The question hung in the air, a tangible entity between them. Jake's expression faltered, the mask of indifference slipping for a moment. "No, of course not. Why would you even think that?" he responded, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his voice. Emily felt a wave of frustration and sadness wash over her. The connection they once shared, so vibrant and clear, now felt clouded by secrets and lies. "I just miss us, Jake. The way we used to be," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. Jake reached out, his hand hovering over hers before pulling back. "I miss us too, Em," he said, his voice low, but his words felt empty, devoid of the conviction they once held. As Jake walked away, leaving her alone with her swirling thoughts, Emily felt a sinking realization that the truth was far more complicated than she had feared. The evening air was crisp as Emily scrolled through her phone, her thumb pausing over a message notification from an unfamiliar name, Rachel Stevens. Her heart skipped a beat, an unsettling feeling creeping in. Hesitantly, she tapped the message open. "You need to know the truth about Jake," the message began, followed by a detailed confession of an affair that spanned months. Emily's phone slipped from her numb fingers, clattering against the hardwood floor of her dorm room. Her mind raced, a whirlwind of disbelief and denial swirling inside her. The world around her faded to a blur as she staggered to her feet, her thoughts echoing with Rachel's words. She needed answers, and she needed them now. With shaky hands, she dialed Jake's number, each ring amplifying the pounding in her chest. "Hey, Em." Jake's voice, usually a source of comfort, now sounded distant, foreign. "We need to talk, Jake." "Now?" Emily's voice was firm, yet it trembled with a mixture of fear and anger. There was a pause, a silence that spoke volumes before Jake's hesitant reply came. "Okay, I'm coming over." Minutes felt like hours as Emily sat on the edge of her bed, her leg bouncing nervously. The door finally creaked open, revealing Jake's apprehensive figure. His eyes, once bright and full of affection, now held a shadow of guilt. "Is it true?" Emily's voice barely rose above a whisper, her eyes searching his for any sign of the boy she thought she knew. Jake's gaze faltered, his usual confident demeanor crumbling under the weight of her stare. "Emily, he started, his voice cracking. The room spun as his confession unfolded, each word a dagger in Emily's heart. The Jake she loved, the one who shared dreams of a future together, was a facade. The truth was harsh and unrelenting, shattering her world into pieces. The world outside Emily's window was blanketed in snow, but inside her heart, a cold, numbing frost had set in. She lay curled up in her bed, the room dim except for the soft glow of the fairy lights she and Jake had hung together. Now, their twinkling seemed to mock her with memories of happier times. Her phone lay silent beside her, a stark reminder of the absence of the messages that used to light it up. Each time it buzzed, her heart leaped, hoping it was Jake, but then sank as it was always someone else. Emily's friends had tried to reach out, their texts a constant stream of concern and support. "You're not alone," they said. "We're here for you." But the words, though well-intentioned, felt distant, unable to penetrate the bubble of her heartache. In the quiet of her room, Emily replayed the confrontation with Jake over and over. His confession, once a desperate plea for forgiveness, now echoed in her mind as the final nail in the coffin of their relationship. The realization that the person she loved most was capable of such betrayal was a weight too heavy to bear. She thought of Rachel, the woman who had invaded her life uninvited. The idea that Jake had shared pieces of himself with someone else, pieces that she thought were exclusively hers, twisted in her like a knife. One evening, as the snow outside turned the world a muted white, Emily's roommate Sarah sat beside her, offering silent company. The comfort in that quiet companionship was a balm to Emily's wounded soul. "You don't have to go through this alone, Em," Sarah whispered, her hand squeezing Emily's. "We'll get through this together." In that moment, Emily realized that while her heart was broken, it was still beating, and with each beat, a faint whisper of hope echoed, promising that someday the pain would ease. As the campus awoke to a fresh blanket of snow, Emily sat in the quiet of the early morning, a steaming mug of tea cradled in her hands. The soft light of dawn filtered through her window, casting a gentle glow on the journal open before her. Each page was a canvas for her thoughts, a place where she could unravel the tangle of emotions that had ensnared her heart. She had started writing as a way to process her feelings, her pen flowing with words of confusion, anger, and a burgeoning sense of self-awareness. The act of writing, once a daunting task, had become a refuge, a space where she could confront her pain and start to make sense of it. In these quiet hours, Emily often reflected on her conversations with Professor Martin, her favorite psychology lecturer. He had become a mentor, offering insights that gently guided her towards understanding and acceptance. "It's not just about moving on, Emily. It's about growing through what you go through," Professor Martin had said during one of their talks. His words resonated with her, a mantra for the healing journey she was on. Emily turned to a new page, her thoughts drifting to the future. The uncertainty that once filled her with dread now seemed less intimidating, more like a path yet to be discovered. As she wrote, the words flowed more easily, a narrative of a young woman finding strength in vulnerability, wisdom in heartache. She was learning to forgive, not just Jake, but herself, for the guilt of not seeing the signs, for the misplaced blame that she had allowed to weigh her down. The sun rose higher, filling her room with light, mirroring the slow lifting of the shadows in her heart. With each word she wrote, Emily felt a little more like herself, a little stronger, a little more hopeful about the pages yet to be filled in her life story. Spring had begun to weave its magic over the campus, the buds on the trees a testament to new beginnings. Emily walked through the park, the fresh scent of blossoms and the gentle warmth of the sun marking a stark contrast to the chill that had once settled in her heart. She had started volunteering at the local animal shelter, a decision that brought unexpected joy. Amidst the wagging tails and soft purrs, Emily found a sense of purpose, a connection to something bigger than her own heartache. One Saturday, as she was leaving the shelter, her phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Can we talk? I miss you." The words once longed for now felt like echoes from a distant past. In that moment, Emily realized how far she had come. The girl who once would have run back into his arms was no more. In her place stood a woman who had learned the hard truths about love and betrayal, yet still believed in the possibility of new love. She replied with a simple, "I wish you well, Jake, but it's time for us to move forward, separately." Sending the text felt like closing a chapter, a final act of letting go. The days that followed were filled with new experiences. Emily threw herself into her studies with renewed vigor, her academic passions reigniting. She even began dating again, her encounters marked by a cautious optimism, a willingness to open her heart, but with a newfound wisdom. One evening, as she sat in a cafe working on her thesis, a sense of contentment washed over her. She had come to cherish her own company, finding strength in her solitude. Looking out of the window at the world moving around her, Emily felt a quiet excitement for the unknown journey ahead. The pain she had once felt was now just a part of her story, a chapter that had ended, making way for new stories to be written. The campus was abuzz with end-of-year energy, but for Emily, it was more than just the anticipation of summer. She had found her voice, not just as a student, but as a beacon of strength for others who had walked in her shoes. In the university auditorium, Emily stood on stage facing an audience of her peers. Her heart pounded, not with nervousness but with the excitement of sharing her journey. She began to speak, her voice clear and resonant. "Today I want to talk about resilience," she said, her eyes scanning the crowd. "About finding strength in places we never knew we had." Her speech was a tapestry of her experiences, woven with lessons of heartache, growth, and the power of self-belief. She spoke of Jake, not with bitterness, but as a chapter in her life that taught her more about herself than she could have imagined. In the audience, faces were attentive, some nodding in understanding, others with eyes glistening with unshed tears. Emily's story was their story too, in one way or another. After the speech, people came up to her, sharing their own stories of heartbreak and healing. Each conversation was a thread connecting their experiences, creating a fabric of shared humanity and resilience. Emily realized she had become more than just a survivor of a broken relationship. She was an inspiration, a source of hope for others. Her journey had transformed her into someone who could light the way for those lost in the darkness of their own heartaches. As she walked back to her dorm under the star-studded sky, Emily felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The pain she had endured was now the source of her strength, a guiding light not just for her but for all those who needed to be reminded that, after every winter, spring always returns. The graduation ceremony had ended, and the campus was alive with a bittersweet symphony of farewells and new beginnings. Emily stood alone for a moment, her gaze lingering on the familiar buildings that had been her world for the past 4 years. Clad in her graduation robe, the weight of the ceremonial cap felt like a crown, a symbol of her triumphs, both academic and personal. She held her diploma tightly, not just a piece of paper, but a testament to her resilience, a reminder of how far she had come. As she walked through the campus one last time, memories flooded her mind. Each corner held echoes of laughter, whispers of heartache, and the silent footsteps of her journey towards healing. The pain that once consumed her was now a distant echo, a part of her history that had shaped her but no longer defined her. She paused by the old oak tree, the site of many a shared dream with Jake. A smile touched her lips, not of sadness but of gratitude. The heartbreak had shattered her, but in its wake she had discovered an unbreakable core within herself. Her phone buzzed with a message from a classmate, now a close friend, inviting her to a post-graduation celebration. She replied with a yes, feeling a surge of excitement for the evening ahead, and more broadly for the life that awaited her. As Emily walked towards her future, the setting sun cast a golden glow over her path. She realized she was no longer the girl who had stepped onto this campus years ago, full of naive dreams. She was a woman, armed with the wisdom of experience, the strength of her scars, and an open heart ready to embrace whatever came next. In that moment, under the vast expanse of the evening sky, Emily knew that her story was just beginning. A story of hope, of dreams reborn, and of a life lived fully with every heartbeat a testament to her journey. After diving into Emily's emotional roller coaster, it really got me thinking, and I want to turn the spotlight to you, the viewers. What would you do if you found yourself in Emily's shoes? Navigating the choppy waters of trust, betrayal, and the journey to healing isn't easy. And we've all faced those tough crossroads in life. I'm super curious to hear your perspectives. How would you handle such a heart-wrenching situation? Have you ever experienced something similar? Share your stories or suggestions in the comments below. Your experiences could be a guiding light for someone else going through their own tough times. And if you've got a story that's close to your heart and you want it shared with our vibrant community, shoot us an email. We're always looking to connect through our stories, finding strength and inspiration in each other's journeys. Remember, every story has its ups and downs, but it's how we navigate through them that truly defines us. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts and stories. Keep shining, folks.